Juniors will take the ACT with writing at AHS on March 14th. For those of you who haven't taken an ACT before, this will be your first high-stakes test-taking experience, and we want you to know what to expect. For those of you who have taken a national ACT before, you know it's a serious test with some universal rules and procedures. The state version of this test has a few additional rules and procedures that make the test-taking experience a little different than the national test. This video will tell you what you need to know and explain why these rules and procedures are in place. The ACT mantra you will hear from now until we give it on March 14th is essentially a list of what to bring and what not to bring. You should bring a photo ID, either your school ID or a driver's license is fine, a number 2 pencil, an ACT-approved calculator, a snack, which can be brought in a clear bag, and a water. It's also good to know what to wear. You should wear comfortable clothing. You'll be sitting and taking a very long test. The test day begins at 8:15 a.m. and for most will end around 1 p.m. Layers. You never know if your test room will be too hot or too cold or just right. A watch. As long as your watch does not beep, have internet access, or Bluetooth capability, you can bring it and keep it on your desk as you test. You cannot wear the watch. You can also wear a mask. Just know that it will be inspected before you enter the testing room. Now for the list of what you cannot bring. You cannot bring any writing utensil other than a number 2 pencil, any calculator that is not ACT approved, reading material, hats, book bags and snack bags that are not clear, AirPods or headphones, smartwatches or Fitbits, and cell phones. The list of what you cannot bring usually sparks a few questions. Questions like, why can't I bring fill in the blank? To understand this list, you need to understand the goals of ACT as an organization. ACT, the organization, develops a test each year that is given around the nation to high school students as one of the 2 entrance examinations most colleges and universities depend on to decide what students they admit. ACT has a huge interest in making sure its test accurately portrays the academic ability of any high school student who takes it. Colleges and universities rely on this test's accuracy to admit students who can meet their academic standards. In order to accurately portray students' academic ability, ACT must ensure that their test is both academically sound and cheat-proof. To accomplish this, ACT gives students who take their tests a list of things they cannot bring and can bring. And ACT has the adults who administer their test go through some pretty intense training. Think of all the ways that you've heard of for kids to cheat. Now, think of the rules ACT has in place for what you cannot bring. The number 2 pencil rule is pretty standard, so we won't go into detail there. But the ACT-approved calculator rule, what's the deal with ACT and specific calculators? Well, some calculators, as you probably know, can access the internet or have special functions that do more than help the user solve a problem. ACT keeps everyone on more of an even playing field by making sure testers use calculators that have similar functions and do not allow anyone to look up the answers or record any part of their test for sharing later. Reading material. Why can't you read after the test is over? Mainly because there's not an easy way for your test administrator to tell what you're reading, whether that reading material gives you information that helps you with your ACT test, or in worst case scenarios, if there's cheating materials hidden in the pages of your copy of The Great Gatsby. Hats. We mentioned that the adults administering the test go through intense training. This hat rule is about being able to monitor what you're looking at during the test, which is what your adults in the room are doing. If you're wearing a hat, it is easier for you to look at someone else's answers undetected. Plus, worst case scenario again, you could have cheating materials hidden inside your hat. Book bags and snack bags that are not clear, including lunch boxes or purses. This year, we will have a clear bag policy for snacks. Why a clear bag policy? So you don't sneak a cell phone, smartwatch, earbuds, or the Great Gatsby into the building. Book bags are absolutely not allowed. AirPods or headphones. This rule is in place to keep you from being able to have answers fed directly into your ear, spy detective style. Smartwatches or Fitbits. This rule is so you cannot look up answers and cheat. And cell phones, obviously the ultimate way a student can cheat, so they're definitely not allowed in the building whatsoever on testing day. Before, during, and after you test, your test administrators or teachers and proctors, which are teachers, counselors, and administrators, have very specific tasks that they've been trained to do. It's important you know a little bit about this so that you understand more about how this test is different than anything else you've ever taken at Auburn High School. On testing day, AHS transforms into a testing site. This means that no activities will happen on campus from about 8:15 a.m. until the last test is completed, which will be around 3:35 p.m., or basically the whole school day. Almost every adult on our campus will have a testing responsibility, so they're not going to be in their rooms or able to help you with other things before, during, or after the test is over. This day is specifically for juniors to come to school, take the ACT, and go home afterwards, and for teachers, counselors, and administrators to focus 100% on administering the test. After you arrive on campus, you'll first encounter teachers, counselors, and administrators who have been trained to make sure that you do not enter the academic building with any prohibited items or materials. Leave these things at home or in your car. Even your test administrators have to do the same thing with their bags, smartwatches, and cell phones. You might have questions about this, like, how are you supposed to text your parents on testing day? Well, remember earlier when we mentioned that on testing day, AHS transforms into a testing site? It is also going to time hop on testing day to the early 1990s, before cell phones were a thing that kids had easy access to. So in the morning, tell your parents bye and that they'll hear from you after you've left the school building. If you need to use a phone after you've finished testing, our front office will let you use one of our old school office phones, early 1990s style. Before you arrive to your testing room, your teachers will have already verified all your testing materials are correct. They know who's supposed to be in their testing room with them and what materials each student should have. If you're testing with accommodations, your teachers have additional training specific to your testing experience and needs. When you show up to your testing room, your test administrator has a process to follow before you can even enter the room. They will identify you by ID. They will scan each of you for things that you cannot bring into the room and ask you about those things. They will even check to see which of their students is left-handed and seat them so that cheating is minimized. Once you're in the testing room, your teachers adhere to a script provided by ACT. They call your attention to the room clock, which is the official timekeeper for your testing room. Because you can bring your own watch and keep it on your desk, this is an important piece of information for you to have, since your watch and the room clock might not be in sync. If there is ever a question about missed timing, the official timekeeper, that clock that your teachers point out in the beginning of the test, is what we use to solve the investigation. Your teacher will write the start time and stop times of each section of the test on the board, so there's no confusion. They will also use an ACT document called the Test Room Report to record each and every timing for every section of the test. This is to ensure that there's very accurate documentation about the timing of every section of your ACT testing experience. While you're testing, your teacher is walking around the room monitoring your progress. They are also keeping track of the number of questions you and every other student in your testing room is answering in each section after the section is finished. They record all of this in the test room report for ACT. This allows us at the school and ACT to make sure that you do not work ahead or, more likely, go back and work on previous sections. Remember, the ACT wants to make sure that their test is accurately portraying your academic ability, and testers having a standard allotment of time to complete each section is part of that. If you were to go back and work on a previous section, you've just given yourself additional time on that section, and that is considered cheating. Teachers are also documenting irregular activity or anything that happens in the testing room that could affect your score. This definitely includes working ahead or going back on previous sections, but it also includes things like disruptions or even going to the restroom while you're taking a section of the test. Teachers report irregular activity to the administration, who then reports it to the district administration, who then reports it to the State Department and ACT. If a teacher, a proctor, or an administrator discovers irregular activity that is considered cheating, it rises to the level of major irregular activity and is reported immediately. For major irregularities, the student will be removed from the testing room. Their test is collected and they're taken to the administration. We don't have many major irregularities, but the ones that we have the most are when a student decides to bring a cell phone into the building during the ACT. When that happens, this is what we do. The student is dismissed from testing immediately. Their test is invalidated. The student cannot get a makeup test. The device is confiscated. It will be released to the parent or guardian upon the next school day. If the administration determines that there's reasonable suspicion that the device was used to capture, record, or share test information or to facilitate cheating on the test, it may be subject to search for any information directly related to ACT, and the student will receive discipline. That's a lot to digest, and you may be thinking, I bet they won't do all that. But sadly, we have to do that every so often when someone makes the choice to bring a cell phone into the building while we're giving the ACT. Why do we do all that? Besides it being what ACT trained us to do and what the State Department requires us to do, because if we don't do it, we can lose our jobs. Truly, each time your teachers, counselors, and administrators are trained to give the ACT, we sign oaths that state that we understand if we fail to report irregular activity, our certification to teach you algebra or anatomy or art will be revoked and we'll be out of a job. So we take this all very seriously. And on testing day, you will come to campus and AHS will be different than on a regular school day. But now you know how it will be different, and you know what to expect, and you know why it will be this way. And even though there's a bunch happening behind the scenes to make sure that this is a secure test, our goal is to make sure that it is comfortable, safe, and successful, and that you have a great testing experience. We hope this helps you do that. As we get closer to March 14th, you will learn more information about the ins and outs of Testing Day in Tiger Connect and through Tiger Tales, so make sure you and your parents are both reading anything ACT related in Tiger Tales each week. Good luck as you prepare for the ACT.